because the legislation is gender specific, because majority of the instances that I have come across so far are faced by a woman who is in a junior power or position, and such complaints are raised against a person in a higher power and position. I tend to use the examples where it is a woman who is the complainant and the man who is a respondent. Man is in a senior power and position. It has also got to do with the gender ratios. It has also got to do with the dynamics in the workplace where there are few women in such high power and positions. So these are the various factors, but if I have to sum up, gender is immaterial, Shweta.
Hello, and a happy new year to you all, dear viewers. Welcome to Voice the Sasha Poshcast, your go to podcast for all things posh. I am your host, Shweta Bhatt, and we begin 2021 with an episode on a theme which is one of the cornerstones of our understanding of sexual harassment at the workplace and its prevention. And that is the role that power differences play when it comes to incidents of workplace sexual harassment. I am very excited to be talking to the founder and convener of Sasha and my mentor, Kanti Joshi, on this topic. Kanti will be taking us through a primer on the theme, followed by a conversation on the frequently asked questions about this topic. Without further ado, let's jump in.
At Sasha, we believe in sharing our journey, our experiences, and in that process, all of us learn and grow together. I would like to share some of my insights gained from working as an external member when complaints of sexual harassment are raised before the internal committee. First, I will be focusing on the aspects that the committee should be mindful of when there are power equations, when there are fiduciary relationships that are involved. Why? Why? Because power is a powerful word when it comes to sexual harassment at the workplace. Any such kind of sexual behaviors, verbal, physical, non-verbal conduct, whether it is direct or implied, if it occurs in relation to work, then it is termed as sexual harassment at the workplace. In situations where it is a direct advance saying, only if you give me sexual favors, then I will give the promotion that is due to you. It is quite clear because it's a direct advance. Situations get tricky if the advances, the behaviors are subtle, covert, or implied in nature. In such cases, the committee will have to look at the various factors and not only the statements of the parties who are involved. Each one reacts and responds differently to various instances when the behavior is unwanted, unexpected, and individuals could be shocked by such behavior when trust is broken. If somebody breaks trust, it could also affect and damage self confidence. Let me share a few instances bringing about what could be the various kinds of responses when one is faced with such kind of behaviors from a person in a position of power or trust. In one of the cases, a team lead groped his team member and she slapped him. Only a few people can attack or fight back when faced with such kind of scenarios. Next instance, a PhD student quit her PhD midway because of the hostile work environment that was created by her guide. She just chose to run away from the situation and decided that she will never speak about it anytime or with anyone. In another situation, the aggrieved individual stated that her supervisor used to stare at her so inappropriately that she tried to avoid him as much as possible. She used her male colleague to communicate with the supervisor, the respondent, and sometimes she also hid behind her male colleague's back. This is a common situation, a common response, and I have come across this in various instances. Last instance, a personal assistant of a senior leader stated that she felt that her job will be secure only if she pleased the respondent, if she pleased the senior leader. At the outset, when we come across such complaints, there is a clear bias that plays out. The first question that gets asked is this honey trapping? So, such kind of cases require careful review, due discussions, and deliberations before arriving at any kind of findings. In addition to all these factors, I would like to share another instance. The respondent constantly asked the complainant to go out for coffee with him. Whenever she accompanied him, he ensured that she was treated really well. Whenever she refused to accompany him, he targeted her. Complainant started feeling that because she has gone with him for coffee, it was like she had given her consent for all such kinds of behaviors or actions. But we need to keep in mind that just because she went for coffee, it does not mean that there could be such kind of preferential or detrimental treatment or even creation of a hostile work environment for her. The most difficult part is that such sexual behaviors are so implied, invisible, subtle, and covert in nature that it becomes really difficult even to recognize such behaviors. In the words of Dr. Sue Johnson, naming an emotion begins the process of regulating it and reflecting on it. If one sends out an email to oneself about what happened, what the individual felt when that particular behavior happened, it helps in two ways. One is identifying and recognizing what one is undergoing, and also, secondly, it acts as proof during inquiry proceedings. Once it is recognized that it is sexual harassment, it can be reported to the internal committee. The act of being friendly, being more supportive, for that matter, normal managerial functions will never be treated as sexual harassment at the workplace. People in power and people who are in higher positions should always be conscious about the boundaries. One common question that gets asked is, then what about consensual relationships? If it is a consensual relationship, even then it has to be it has to be reported to the appropriate authorities. Just to add, it is not at all necessary that such behavior should happen only in physical premises or even in office provided virtual platforms. When the person is in a position of power or trust and has the capacity to influence the work conditions of the recipient, it is immaterial where it happens, how it happens. It is brought within the scope and definition of sexual harassment at the workplace. With power comes responsibilities. Power, if used responsibly, can create wonders. One of them is maintenance of a safe and inclusive work environment.
Thank you so much, Kanti, for that really succinct and clear primer on how power plays an important part in incidents of sexual harassment and what happens afterwards. So, we have sourced some questions from Team Sasha, and some very interesting questions have come forward. So, I'm going to be asking you those questions and getting more wisdom from you. Okay, so our first question is, do you think age difference between parties also plays a role as power difference?
Yes, age also is one of the factors. A lot of time, what I have seen happen is if the person is someone who is much elder than the individual, they expect it the least for such behavior to come from that particular person. Yes, it does play out a factor amongst all the other various factors.
This is very interesting because somebody can be technically in the same hierarchical level in the organization, but so many factors might be there, like age, for example, like
Gender,
years.
gender, caste.
Yeah, which can bring about a sort of a unsaid difference. So when we talk about rejection of sexual advances, from somebody who is in power, and then, after that, if there is retaliation, so it comes back as retaliatory behavior, how should the committee go about investigating into such kinds of instances?
It becomes very tricky. Most of the times, this retaliatory conduct or behavior is invisible. The aggrieved comes and shares that she is facing that he is targeting her, he is cornering her, and in one of the case, it happened only between one-on-ones. And later, during appraisal, we were able to establish the retaliatory behavior because she had been an amazing performer, top performer from last 2 years. However, only after the particular alleged incident, her appraisal was like the lowest. It was true that her performance was not that great. However, it was due to the manager's behavior. Because of the creation of a hostile work environment for her, she was not able to perform to the best of her abilities.
Yeah.
It does make a difference, and the committee members have to be trained, have to be sensitive to look at instances of sexual harassment in a holistic manner. We cannot view instances only in isolation.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that is also something that we convey in our employee sessions, in the sense that it is not just that particular incident or advance which was unwelcome, inappropriate, but a lot of times what happens after that. So the creation of a hostile work environment or any retaliation that might not be in itself sexual in nature, but it is connected to this incident. So it becomes part of the same complaint. Yeah.
You're
So
right.
So our next question relates to interoffice relationships, which are romantic or which are sexual in nature, consensual relationships, or even the idea of possibility of relationship or interest. So flirting, for example, right? And there are many stances that organizations take stances on interoffice romances, but when it comes to something like flirting, which might not be in the realm of a proper relationship as such, what if a manager or somebody senior in the team has interest, romantic interest for somebody junior, and flirts with them, and what is your opinion on this as such, considering that there is also a power difference here?
If there is any kind of power difference, I would say never indulge in any kind of flirting. If you're still if you still have romantic interest, it's absolutely fine, but ensure that the individual on whom you have such kind of romantic interest is not directly reporting to you. Basically, the person in a higher power or position should ensure that there is no conflict of interest. There is a tendency to show favoritisms towards someone if you like that person. But being in power, you have to be conscious of the fact that even if it is just flirting, even if it is a romantic interest, it can be perceived differently. Also, it is like digging your own grave. You will land into trouble one way or the other. Best part, don't do it.
So, what about, sometimes a very common question that, people ask, especially in employee sessions, IC orientations, is, have you heard of cases where a female manager, somebody who is a woman who is in power, compared to, let's say, a male team member or even a female team member or any other gender identity, harasses them? Because usually when we talk about power differences, the person who is higher in power is and the perpetrator is male. So what about the other side of it?
It applies both ways, irrespective of gender, whether the person in a higher power position is a male, female, or identifies as part of some other gender, it's immaterial. When you are in a power position, the guidelines are the same.
One question has come in terms of your own experience. So, has power difference uh, personally or affected you in an inquiry process as external member? When you sit in inquiries or while talking to the stakeholders in the organization, etc.
Personally, I can confidently say that power does not affect me in any way or manner. I think that is part of my personality where some of them may feel that, oh my God, this woman is so arrogant or has attitude. But to be very honest, whatever is the power or position, not only while conducting the inquiry, even in day to day life, it does not make any difference to me. However, when it comes to the other committee members, I have seen that yes, power does affect them. It could be due to their work related dynamics. It could be owing to the fact that when the respondent is a very senior leader, they may have worked with this individual or they may still be working with this individual. In one of the complaints that I was a part of, the moment the complaint was raised against Yates, three committee members recused themselves, saying that against this individual, I'm not comfortable to sit and question him, saying, did you indulge in such kind of behavior? Employer had to re-notify a new committee in ensuring that the entire inquiry is fair, just, and transparent to both the parties.
Thank you for bringing that up. So, have you handled cases, where there has been huge power dynamics in play, which has thrown challenges to the committee? Could you talk to us about such a case?
I have been a part of a few inquiries where power was so evident to the extent that as a committee, we had to function differently on various fronts. Firstly, all the inquiry proceedings had to be conducted at an external venue. Even when we sent out small things, like even when we sent out the meeting invites, we could not send it to the respondent's email ID directly because the personal assistant managed the calendar of the respondent. The witnesses were very hesitant, saying that you may penalize the respondent in this organization. You may even terminate the respondent. However, he's so powerful in the industry that if he knows that I spoke against him, I will not be able to get a proper job in other organizations also. This perception, when it comes to power, is very deep rooted. It need not come only for witnesses who are women. What I stated just now is what a male witness said. And it is not that this particular male witness was in a junior level position or something. But power can have various consequences. It can create different kinds of perceptions. In addition to this, the inquiry at every stage and process, as a committee, we had to take each step with a lot of care and caution. However, considering that the committee members were very clear about their roles and responsibilities, I can confidently say that we were able to arrive at a fair and just findings.
In closing, is there something that you would like to share with us?
The very fact that we have a specific legislation in India mainly to redress complaints related to sexual harassment shows how deep rooted this problem is. Each one of us need to contribute if the work environment needs to be safe and secure so that every individual, firstly, feels great to come to work, do work, but if faced with any such kind of scenarios, raise their voice. I would say no one can say that it does not affect me, it has not happened with me, it is not something that is related to me. We have to contribute in the way that each one of us can.
Those are powerful words to end this session by. And with that, I would like to say thank you for taking us through this topic. I think it's a very important conversation to have, and for answering all our questions. Thanks so much, Kanti.
Thanks, Shweta.
And that was our episode, dear viewers. What did you think of it? What queries do you have on this topic? Write to us at voice@sashaindia.com with your questions and comments. We'd love to hear from you. Do also follow us on social media and subscribe to our monthly newsletter Voice on Substack for more information on this topic. Until we meet again, this is your host Shweta signing off. Take care, stay safe, and remember, together we can prevent, protect, and progress.